Chairperson. With respect to the compliance review for the year ended 31st December 2020 and 2021. So unless the commissioners have questions, I will want to move on to other issues.
What page was that, please?
Page 22. We're discussing the issue regarding the procurement of the 655 bags of rice at an amount of $4,025,750 from Nema Soup Enterprises.
Yes, I just want to find out from Mr. Sanya. Mr. Sanya, would you agree with me that the analysis that the price suggestion that the council made with reference to the purchase of this rice, maybe even far less in 2020 and 2021. Is that a possibility?
Yes, it's possible.
So, in other words, if I can put it this way, maybe the analysis he made that a bag of rice costing at 2,000 or 3,000 may not be tenable as of 2020.
Correct.
So, in other words, one could safely conclude that this was not based on any due process.
Yes.
The entire transactions.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Any other question? 5%.
Yes, I do have one. Mr. Sanya, the purchases of the vehicles, were you able to verify that these vehicles were bought, and how many were they?
Actually, when our team go out for review, sometimes they make physical verifications, and sometimes they don't. And in this case, I'm not very sure whether they have physically verified to see the items or not.
And another thing is, these are assets. And do your people verify the asset register when a case like this happens? To say the add-ons on the asset register is or are 4 vehicles or 5 or 6 on the asset register. They don't have an asset register?
Actually, that's a good suggestion. In fact, when we go out, the asset register is one of the documents that we ask. And even though we don't go out physically to verify, but sometimes we use the asset register to verify some of the items.
And this time?
In this case, I am not very sure whether it was.
Okay. So the vehicles you did not verify, you could not say whether it was verified using the asset register. The rice too, you could not verify whether it was actually delivered or not. So all of these things are things that you see on paper, but you cannot physically put your eyes on them or touch them.
I cannot ascertain here. But then I just wanted also an advice, because based on some of the requests that have been made, yesterday I sent a team to go around and collect some of the documentation that you are requesting for, including some of these things. Right now they have just called to tell me that some of the documents, in fact most of them, are already submitted to this council. So I don't know, I need an advice here.
Yes, what you could get back to them and confirm, because if they submit anything to the council, they do so via a list. They can provide that list for you, and you can verify that list with what we have requested from you. If it is contained in the documents that they have supplied to us, you indicate to us that it is already with us. Okay. If not, you ask them to provide.
Thank you.
If they have it.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, let me just ask a question before we proceed. What is the implication of a supplier not signing an LPO?
Now, if a supplier failed to sign an LPO, the implications would be like maybe they are not even, because it's not contractually binding. The LPO is not contractually binding.
I did not get that explanation. Can you please explain again?
What I'm saying is an LPO is a request for items that the supplier agreed to supply based on requirements that are already agreed between the supplier and the procuring organization.
Yeah.
And as such, the signature is to indicate legality and, of course, to ensure that the contract, whatever the supplier is or the buyer is requesting for the supplier to deliver is legally binding. So in the absence of the supplier signing the LPO may indicate that the contract is not actually binding, and it's also possible that the goods, one cannot ascertain that the goods are delivered.
So the follow-up question is that no goods can be delivered without an LPO. Is that the position?
Well, yes, goods, the LPO should be there to...
Is it a requirement? Is it mandatory?
Yes, it's a requirement.
And is it mandatory?
Yes, it's mandatory.
Then why is it that throughout your reports, most of the time you are silent about the supplier having signed or not signed the LPO? And sometimes what you can see on your reports is that the contracts are not signed, but you would not specify because there are different contracts. You know that there are different types of contracts that a PO can sign with a service provider, or when they are purchasing goods and services and all that. So why is it that the authority did not highlight in some of these transactions whether the LPOs were signed or not? Because we have seen clearly, you indicate in your reports that you do not have delivery receipt showing that the goods were delivered. But we have not seen in most of the reports that the LPOs are signed. And you have already told this commission that it's mandatory for any supply for services and goods, you must sign an LPO.
You are right. It's a good observation. But if you look at most of the reports that we already dealt with, most of the documents, in most cases, the documents that are submitted are the LPO, as opposed to the other documents. The LPO, in fact, is mentioned that is one of the documents that, in most cases, are submitted. But then, if they are not signed, if you look at our reports, in most cases, we deal with the non-compliances. So if LPO is submitted and it is not signed, it will be indicated, just like the case with this one.
Is it for documents, for the documents that you normally, for the key documents that you normally review, do you specifically request for LPOs to be produced by the procuring organization?
What we normally do is, procurement is a process.
No, I'm just asking you specific on LPO.
Yes, I'm coming. It's a process. So from the beginning to the end, there are certain documents that should be, of course, administered at different levels. When the process is completed, we assume that the file is now closed. So when we go, we ask for the whole file for a particular transaction. That is why the law requires that procurement...
No, that is not my question. My question is, as part of the documents that you request from the procuring organization, is it part of your request to request for LPOs on the transactions?
What I am saying is we will ask for the complete transaction, which will also include the LPO. So when we review the transaction and then find out that some documents should have been there and are not included, including the LPO that we are talking about, then we'll indicate that for this particular transaction, an LPO is not presented.
Yes, but now you can see that, and you can note from the reports, there is nowhere mentioned, but you can, it can be noted that in some of your files, it has been indicated, not actually LPO, but contracts not signed. And you know, contract has a different meaning, interpretation, and an LPO also has its own meaning, and it's very specific. So my question is, why is it not captured in your reports? That is my question. Because apart from the LPO, many other forms are also part of the submission. So we have not been indicating, for example, Form 100 signed by X, Y, and Z, Form 005 signed by X, Y, and Z, the receipt signed by Mr. X. What we normally do is we look at all the documents. Yeah?
Yes, we look at the documents. Specifically, we don't specify which documents are submitted or not. We look at them. If they are available, yes, we indicate. If they are not signed, in some cases, then we specify that X, Y, and
is it not your evidence that for every transaction, when it comes to the purchase of goods and services, you must raise an LPO that will enable the procuring officer to pay the supplier or the provider of the services? Is that what you told the Commission?
Yes. What I told also...
Just a minute. So, my issue is that you have LPOs that the supplier wouldn't sign.
Yes.
So, why is that? And yet still, the supplier is paid.
Anyway, it could be an oversight, but I don't know whether you are also following what I am trying to explain.
I understand what you are saying, but thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Council, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Yes. Now, can you turn to page 25? Are you there?
Yes, page 25.
Now, just 21.21.
Yes, value for money.
Yes, value for money. The findings are, the first point, the procurement organization does not undertake market survey and analysis of suppliers and prices in the market during the year being reviewed to inform the placing orders as required by regulation. We have discussed the importance of market surveys, right?
Yes, yes.
And we say, we always say that the importance is to know the prevailing prices in the market,
right,
so that you will attain value for the money that you will be spending on those items or goods.
Right.
But again, all these are just procedural requirements, assuming the officers in charge are willing to do the right thing in relation to following due process.
Right.
So, to me, none of this matters because they don't, in Mansakong Area Council and in almost all the area councils, they don't even need to know or conduct market survey to know the prevailing prices, because they procure at will without regard to the act or the regulation. Because for example, if you are to buy a bag of rice for about $7,000, even if you don't conduct a market survey, you will know that that is way, way unimaginable. Is that not the case?
Right.
Yes, so the second point, we have discussed the issue of negotiation. Can you read the second point for us, please, in the findings?
The procuring organization does not negotiate to get better offers as recommended by regulations for single source procurement.
Yes. How do you interpret that? Or how do you explain that to us?
Now, what it is suggesting is like when you are to single source, now one of the requirements is once a supplier is identified with all other issues fulfilled and a price is given, now the supplier in the
Please speak through the microphone and try to raise your voice a bit.
So the SPU or those responsible for the procurement should engage the service providers or the suppliers on negotiation in terms of price, quality, and so on. So in this case, we noted that that has not been happening.
So it is key, especially in single sourcing.
Correct.
And again, like you said, it's very important because then not only are you attaining value for money, but in fact at a very discounted price, so that you save, you possibly save, the idea is to save the public institutions valuable time, resource. You can save a lot of money for other important matters as well. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Now, you made some recommendations. You said the PO is encouraged to continue to undertake market research and analysis more often, preferably on quarterly basis, to keep it abreast of current trends to inform the placing of orders. And number two, the PO should enter into negotiations for single source procurements as required by the regulation and provide negotiation report. You see that?
Right, yes.
Was there any management response?
No.
There was none.
There was no management response.
See, these recommendations, maybe you have been following this style for so many years. You said you have been there for about 15 years. I think it's high time to change, to be more strict in how you address some of the issues that you find in these institutions. Don't you think so?
Yes, but I don't know, because some years back this has never, it was not like this. In years back they used to respond. Responses must come.
Not only the management response, I mean the recommendations. Perhaps if you take a stiffer remedial procedure, then probably you wouldn't have repetitions of flagrant violations of the act consistently.
You are right, and that is why I'm not trying to define, but
I know.
That is why I shared with you that some of these things are really considered in our 2022 Act and Regulations.
Yes.
And for sure, there will be very stringent measures taken against anybody who is found wanting.
Very well. Now, the point 22, contract management. Again, these are procedural requirements. Inspection and acceptance committees, we see they are not in establishment. Supplier performance reviews are not carried out to inform future improvements of the suppliers on completion of their deliveries, and no evidence of contracts management team in place. Now, the implications are that the contracts may not be performed in accordance with all the terms and conditions of the contract. The contract may not be performed in accordance with all the terms and conditions. Relevant information regarding the contract could be missing. Weak contract administration is an invitation to corrupt practices. See, rarely do you use these words, fraudulent, fraud or misappropriation, misrepresentation of facts, or corrupt practices. You see these are words that you should definitely be using time and again. If you are fair to if GPPA wants to be really fair to the public, these are the words that you are expected to highlight. Because if I may ask you, what will prompt you as a regulatory body to come up with this kind of implication, to highlight it as a concern?
Council, what page and what number?
On page 26, we are discussing point 22, where you have contracts management. We had discussed the non-compliance in relation to contracts management, Madam Chair. In fact, it is across the board. You see all the area councils in relation to their contracts management is just the same findings we have dealt. But then if you look at the implications, in prior reviews, you will see that they just highlighted the general implications. But for this one, something must have prompted GPPA to actually outline the very fact that weak contract administration is indeed an invitation for corrupt practices. And I am saying that this should be really, this corrupt practices is in fact what is featuring in all the reports. So I want to hear from the witness. What must have caused the GPA or advise you to actually highlight the possible corrupt practices in this situation with respect to the contracts management?
I think the whole thing have something to do with choice of words and the way the reviewers present their observations and the like. Because we have seen the negative implications of the lack of or the non-compliance issues and the way they are put in. Corrupt practices is not, I don't think I have seen anything mentioned like that. But then if you look at the way the sentences are structured, it's more or less the same as corrupt practices and the like. So what I am saying is most like is a choice of words, because different people write different reports. Even if you look at the author of these other reports, I don't think I have seen any, I have seen their names on any of the other reports that we have dealt with.
Yes, that's true. And that is why it is important. Choice of words, diction is very important in whatever you do, especially if you are providing a report for the public. We have discussed this, especially in relation to how important you should take your report writing. The commissioners have really hammered on this point, and you will see the vast or endless inconsistencies, the endless mistakes here and there, or the carefree nature of writing the report. But when it comes to choice of words, you serve the public. GPP is here to serve the Gambian people. And so information depends largely on context, how you choose your wording. Is that not correct? If you just highlight the implications, you say, let's say for example, because some people may not know something about procurement, but what they know is that Mansakoko Area Council, Carnifin Municipal Council, Banjul City Council are supposed to serve the interests of the public. And as far as they are concerned, they are dealing with public funds time and again. We talk a lot about waste management and so on and so forth. So all we have is the area councils, either through their mayors or to their CEOs or whosoever, making us believe that everything is going okay. Now, there are oversight institutions who are supposed to make sure they provide a checks and balance system, and that's what you do. Is that not correct?
Correct.
And so how you report to the public or the executive to make sure that you are performing your oversight function very well, to give us the other side of the wheel, so that we will know what is happening in the area councils. It's very important. So if you choose a much more lenient or much more nicer way of dressing the information, people will not get the information. That's just my point. So, for example, you said, the first point, the contracts may not be performed in accordance with all the terms and conditions of the contract. This, to any normal reader or listener, will just believe that maybe they didn't just follow due process. You understand? You go to the next point, the contracts may not be performed in, let's say, weak. Relevant information regarding the contract could be missing. Someone may interpret it to mean they just decided to have a very bad way of administering things. They didn't keep records here and there, so it may be an honest mistake. Someone's attitudinal whatsoever has been questioned. But it's more than that. This point, the fourth point here, is saying that, in my interpretation, that all these things are not, in fact, by mistake, like I keep on saying. They are intentional. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Yes, they are intentional. They are really intentional to the extent that the idea is to enrich individuals, to fill in their pockets with public funds on a continuous basis, time and again. So I am saying these are the kind of words we need from people or institutions like yours who are serving the public to highlight, so that you don't get people to speculate what is happening. Do you agree with that?
Agree.
Yes, before you proceed, under the contracts management, you referred to the public procurement regulations, part 8, which does not tally with what is provided for. Because part 8 is contract administration, but the sections are totally different, because sections 30 to 35 deal with completely different issue, which is under part 4, that is the participation of small and medium enterprises in procurement. Did you see that?
Yes, good.
Part 4 of the regulations. Part 4 of the regulations is participation of small and medium enterprises in procurement. And section 32 deals with lotting of bids. Section 33 is capacity building of local firms. 34 is timely payment of certificates or invoices. And 35 is monitoring of compliance, which is different from contract management, which starts from section 130. You see the difference and the wrong referencing?
Under contract management,
Yes.
part V111,
Yes.
that is what? And under it you have, in the regulation you have contract administration.
Yes. Now what I'm saying is that the sections that you refer to, section 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35, are wrong references. Is that not correct?
Yes, yes.
Council, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Now, may I draw your attention to page 27, where you have the specific findings. Are you there with me? Page 27.
Okay.
The first is the procurement of design and development of payroll system. Do you see that?
Yes.
The amount is $110,000. The awarded contract is Sinrica technology. The method used is RFQ, request for quotation, and the compliance findings are that the procurement documentation such as receipt GPPA form 004, 102, and 101 were attached. The procured item was indicated in the procurement plan. Now, and under the amount is within the threshold. Now, for non-compliance, there was no minute of the contracts committee to approve the procurement as stipulated. Do you see that?
Yes.
So, number one, this was never discussed at the contracts committee level, and there was no approval. And so, the other one is there was no delivery receipt to show that the procurement was complete. And that is to say, there is no evidence that what is being procured is in fact being delivered. Is that correct?
Correct.
The third one, the third finding on a non-compliance, there was no procurement documentation. Forms 040 and 012 were not present, were attached as stipulated in section 35 sub 2. The other one is there was no inspection committee to inspect the goods. And the last, that there was no evaluation report. Again, all the rules, all the requirements in procurement being ignored intentionally. But then, for the purposes of repeatedly talking about the contracts committee, in fact, we have a contracts committee that is not, in fact, being appointed formally. Is that not correct? And we have a contracts committee wherein the deputy chairman of the area council is the actual head, the chairman of the contracts committee. So again, you have raised the issues of conflict of interest, and so that is not a normal situation. Is that not correct?
Correct, correct.
Also, just to reconfirm from you that regulation 28 of the GPPR and section 12(7)(b) and 2 of the GPPA Act are all wrong. Reference. The regulation 28 provides for registration for purposes of preference schemes.
Yes.
Which is totally different. And section 12(7) is dealing with functions and powers of your authority, which is totally different from issues of lack of minutes from the contracts committee, as stated above. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Again, no management response. They didn't even bother to reply or give reasons or excuses or explanation. They did not.
Correct.
Now, the second, still on page 28, the procurement of uniforms, shoes, and caps for council's securities. The amount is $18,000. The contractor is Suleiman Bah Shop. Do you see that?
Yes.
It's a single source. The procurement method was within the threshold. The procured item was indicated in the procurement plan. There was no delivery receipt to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated in section 35. Again, no response. You have the procurement of sugar.
Yes, before you proceed, Council.
Yes.
At page 29, under the issue of compliance, which you said the institution complied, but you have made reference to a wrong provision that the institution complied with, because you referred to section 38 and 45 of the GPPA Act. And 38 is preference for open tendering, and it does not deal with threshold. Did you see that?
Yes.
Also, on the issue of compliance, you got it totally wrong. stated that Regulation 25(1) and Section 29 of the GPP. Is that also correct?
No, I don't think it's correct.
25 of the regulations is electronic procurement marketplace. Is it correct or wrong?
No, you are correct.
So 29 of the Act is saying procurement plan. Is that correct or wrong?
Correct.
So all of this is, even the one you said is compliant, is wrong, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so sugar was procured for $30,000. It is a single source. The contractor is one Jajun Duba shop. Now, there was no minute of the contracts committee to approve the agreement, but you can't have minutes if the head or the chairman of the alleged contracts committee is the deputy or vice chairman of the area council, and everyone in the contracts committee is appointed verbally. So if I have to speak all of boy, okay, can just lick you. That's how it works. Are public office supposed to work that way? Is that the intention of the formation of contracts committee, to make things informal?
Contracts committees must be formally appointed.
Exactly. So now, here we have sugar being procured at an amount of $30,000. Do you see it? Page 29.
Yes, yes.
How many bags of sugar? Do you know?
No.
And the same thing with the uniforms that have been procured for $18,000 from Suleiman Basha. Do we know how many uniforms, how many shoes, how many caps? We don't know.
No, I don't.
So here you said procurement of sugar. It could be a cup of, you didn't even say a bag. It could be a cup of sugar, or one bag, or 2 bags, 3 bags. We would not know. So is there any way that we will know the quantity? Because these are quantifiable goods, are they not?
Yes, they are.
So in the conduct of your review, will you not be privy to documentation to ascertain how many bags of sugar we are talking about? Or if they are bags at all?
Actually, 2 things. One, if the documentation is correct, it's very easy, because on Form 100, there is a page there is a portion where quantity will be indicated, and even unit of measure. You have just mentioned about cups and so on. So the 30 bags of sugar could be 25 kilos instead of 50 kilos.
Exactly.
So it's a good observation. Yes, if documentation is properly done, it can be we can easily detect it. But without the documentation, obviously, when a review or an audit exercise is being conducted, it's their responsibility to ensure that they find out what the number is. So here, it is not indicated. We take the responsibility as an authority that it should have been done that way.
No, you take the responsibility for not doing your job properly. That's one thing. I think we will not be tired to say that you haven't done your job in fact, in most situations, the way you're supposed to. But that would also stop there. That does not also absolve the responsibility of council in relation to providing adequate information. Because here you have $30,000. In the previous one you have $18,025, and there are so many procurements being done in this manner. And when the goods being procured are quantifiable, that there is not even the possibility that you can know the amount of goods being procured. You should know the amount of goods being procured, because if you are to raise a purchase order, won't you quantify these goods?
Yes.
Yes, there's no even evidence of a purchase order being raised.
Right.
So we wouldn't even know the quantity. So all we have is just figures being spent. Do you see that?
I have seen that.
And
even in the absence of the purchase order,
yes,
it's indicated.
Please speak to the microphone.
In the absence of the purchase order,
yes,
as noted, we also have this non-compliance issue, no delivery receipt, which
yes,
could have also shown the number of bags and so on, and quantity.
Mrs. Sanyang, you have said on the same page 29 that the council complied by attaching Form 100. And it has been noted throughout your report that you will say that the council has complied, but you will not go ahead and indicate whether what was attached was an empty form or an incomplete form, or, you understand, what were the things that were not contained. Because if you say compliance, you said the procurement documentation such as receipts, GPPA form 100 was attached. Anybody reading this would assume that the form 100 was completed fully and attached, unless there is a contrary information. That will be your understanding. So which means the authority is not giving complete information.
Correct.
Thank you. Can you proceed, Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, in summary, what we are saying and the agreement we have is that all these monies being spent, there is no evidence whatsoever. All we know is monies are being spent from public coffers on a daily basis, time and again, but no evidence whatsoever of, for example, of the goods being purchased, if they are even at all being purchased, the amount of goods being purchased, and so on and so forth. There is no evidence to back any assertion, but the one thing they cannot hide is the fact that money is being spent. But in how, where, on what is the quantity, those things they can't tell us, because they've already probably done what you highlighted, that what we have, the system we have, is an invitation for corrupt practices. The system is just porous.
Correct.
Someone said here, was it you or your or Tambura, that I'm not sure that's in your case, that more or less you act like a toothless bulldog. You understand? Now, on page 30, you have the procurement of office equipments. Again, $32,100, and the procured item was not specified on the procurement plan. There was no delivery receipt. There was no inspections committee. There was no evaluation report. Do you see it? Documentation was incomplete, because there was no attachment of goods received and delivery notes to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated in section 35. Now you have the procurement of suspended ceiling with accessories, $85,000. Supplier is Sadibu Drame, through single sourcing, and It doesn't even have a PV number. The non-compliance issues are the procured item was not specified on the procurement plan. The procurement method was above the threshold. There was no delivery receipt. There was no inspections committee. There was no evaluation report. Documentation was incomplete because there was no attachment of goods received and delivery notes to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated. You see, this is why I said for the number of transactions that you highlight in your reports. Are you with me?
Yes.
That's why I suggested, I said I have the opinion that the number of transactions that that features in your report are the very ones that the councils want you to see, even though with those ones, in fact, there are no proper documentation. Even though all you see is figures, numbers, or in few cases perhaps purchase orders, and that's it. But then flouting all the requirements, all the rules, one person or a group of individuals deciding what to do with public funds, how do you want to do it, spend it however they want, and just come and tell you, well, we have purchased 2 vehicles. You will not even see the vehicle. The amount you don't even know. And then these things they keep on repeating every year in, year out. Because they know nothing is going to come against them. Do you understand that?
Yes, before
Yes.
you proceed, let me just put this across to Mr. Sanya. Page 30, that is where what we are dealing with, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Page
The-
31? Yes.
Page 30 first.
30, yes. 30,
Yes.
31, yes.
All of the issues that are, the references that are made from the top page, that is the first non-compliant issue, section 35.2 is wrong, and section 35.2 on the second point is also wrong. Section 133 and 136 are all wrong because section regulation 133 refers to pre-shipment inspection services, and 136 refers to record of supplier performance. So these are all inconsistent and are wrong referencing. And when you also get to, there is no delivery receipt as stipulated in section 35.2 of the GPP Act. Section 35.2 is completely different because section 35 is record of procurement proceedings and archiving requirements. And if you get to the provision, sub 2 of what you have referred to is, let me read you what sub 2 says. Sub 2 is information to be included in the record shall to the extent applicable include, and it has all these issues. So this one also is wrong, right? And it also goes for section, when you said non-compliance, that is the procurement of office equipment, which is at a cost of 32,100. The contractor was Sadis Enterprise. The sections you have quoted, which is section 25.1 of the GPPAR and section 29 of the GPPA, are all wrong, and section 32.5 is also wrong, and regulation 133 and 136. Do you see that?
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted you to confirm that. Please, let's proceed.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, you turn to page 32, please. Are you there?
Yes.
So before you ask your question,
Yes.
let me just say in page 31, the same also goes to all of these provisions, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Yes.
Proceed.
So page 32, an amount of 601,900 was used or spent for the procurement of provision. Do you know what these provisions were?
Anyway, the breakdown was not provided.
Okay. And we've already discussed that. And same from Nemasu Enterprise through single sourcing. Now, the purchase order was raised as well by the end user department. But let's do it for now. The procured item was not specified on the procurement plan. So there was no plan to spend $601,900 on provisions, as vague as it may seem. And there was no delivery receipt, so, and we also don't have evidence of it being spent on the provisions and the provisions being delivered. There was no inspections committee, so no one was present to inspect the goods delivered. In fact, they are not even delivered in the first place. There was no evaluation report. Documentation was incomplete. There was no evaluation report attached. The item procured was second hand. It's not allowed in the procurement rules. So the items said to be procured are even second hand goods that are contrary to the rules as well. So again, my point is, this amount of money, what was it spent on? You wouldn't know, because the evidence is not there.
Yes, right.
Yes, and Council, just to highlight one issue, the heading indicates that it was for the procurement of provision.
Yes.
And on the last point on the non-compliance issue,
Yes.
they have indicated that these are second-hand goods.
Yes.
So which means one of the parties is covering up a lot of stuff and not telling the truth. Because if the caption is provision, we are expecting tea, coffee, etc. And if at the latter part of the report it is saying it's second-hand goods that are purchased and is not identified, and they had the opportunity to verify and list the items, then we have an issue. So can you clarify that from the
as serious as it seems, Madam Chair, your observation, unless they want to tell us that they procured second-hand rice, perhaps, or second-hand tea. Maybe the tea bag has been used by someone else, and now they have procured second-hand tea bags or second-hand rice, which have already been eaten by someone. My point is that's practically impossible. So you have highlighted a very important point. The two don't tally. It doesn't make sense. It's either you procure provisions or second-hand goods. But you can't procure second-hand provisions unless it exists. I don't know.
Can you provide clarification on this?
Yes, will.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
And the first point, this particular procurement, we spoke about the whole idea of procurement or goods or services or items we procured should start from the end user. Is that not correct?
Yes.
And here, the end user is the very department that is in dire need of the items or the goods to be procured. Do you understand?
Yes.
So can you give an example of how and where an end user can start a procurement process?
For example, if in an institution, accounts department, for example, wants to buy a computer.
Exactly.
Now, they are the they will be in a better position to tell the kind of computer that they needed in terms of its quality and so on. Somebody from another department should not impose, because a wrong item may be given. A computer may be provided, but may not be fit for purpose.
Or the imposition may just be, again, to target someone's personal financial gains. So it's either it is part of the procurement plan for a particular year. So if you have the laptop being part of the procurement plan, being discussed, agreed, approved plan for a particular year, then we know, of course, we are supposed to buy a laptop for the accounts department for the year 2024. Do you understand?
Correct.
Or in the normal operational, daily operational activities, let's say the accounts department feel or they notice that one of their computers is not functional, and they want to, they may raise a purchase order, which is subject to the structural approval of the institutions. But in this situation, what worries me is this excessive amount of money, $601,000, being spent on provisions, which is very much vague, or being spent on second-hand goods, as the case appeared to be as well. And the end user did not even raise the purchase order. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now you have the procurement of borehole construction in Mina. If you turn to the next page on 33, you see that $475,000 was spent. The contractor is Darus Salam Construction. Request for quotation was the method. It appears there were no compliant findings. But then when it comes to non-compliance findings, you have no minutes of the contracts committee. There was no delivery receipt. The procured item was not indicated in the procurement plan. There was no procurement documentation, no inspections committee, no detailed specification, no evaluation report, no delivery receipt, and no evaluation criteria on the solicitation document. So again, $475,000 being spent or being removed from public funds without any evidence whatsoever of either the desirability of the said procurement, it being accepted or ratified by the relevant authorities, or evaluation committee doing their job if they ever exist, if they don't, or an inspections team inspecting the goods. But you wouldn't even get there because there is no delivery receipt as well. So no evidence of delivery. So where are all these monies going to? That seems to be a very difficult question to answer.
It's very difficult.
But where do you think these monies are going to?
I think they are the best people to answer that.
I know, but I just want to sound your opinion. I'm sure they will sit where you are sitting right now to answer these questions. But then just to get your opinion as an expert in procurement, if you see all these problems happening, where do you think, what comes to your mind first?
Actually, I think it comes to the same thing that you have just said, corruption, and most likely the monies will go to individual pockets.
Thank you. And now you turn to page 34.
Council,
Yes.
let me, on page 33, you have the procurement of a ceiling fan and bulb.
Yeah.
A ceiling fan indicating that it is one ceiling fan with a bulb at the cost of $9,800. The awarded contractor, there is no indication as to who the contract was awarded to and The method is single sourcing. So under the column of non-compliance, is it also true that all the referencing here is wrong?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, you can go to the
So
page.
that's it. On the same page, page 34, you will see that the amount $9,800 is as discussed by the Honorable Chairperson, was used to buy a ceiling fan and a bulb plumb. Now, when you look at the non-compliance issues, so again, the purchase order was not raised by the end user. So if the ceiling fan was supposed to be for the CEO's residence or the chairman's office, we don't know. So it must be for a purpose, is it not?
Correct.
You just don't buy ceiling fans like that. There must be a reason as to why you're buying a ceiling fan. So if you want to purchase a ceiling fan, for example, it must have had a reason as to why you are purchasing the ceiling fan. So we don't know who is the end user, and obviously we know that it is not being raised by the end users. The other point is the procured item was not even specified on the procurement plan. It was never planned for. The method, the procured method you said was above the threshold. 9,000 is single source, I doubt. But there was no delivery receipt as stipulated in the relevant laws. So we don't even know whether this ceiling fan was being delivered. Or let's conclude that it's in fact not delivered because there's no evidence of that. No inspections committee, but we wouldn't need an inspection committee if we don't have a delivery note. No evaluation report, but that explains it because you don't have a contracts committee who sits and approves all these procurement being conducted. So the documentation is incomplete. Now you have the procurement of fuel on page 34 still. There's a list attached. There are three categories. The first category is an amount of $549,535 is 19 bututs. The awarded contractor is GNPC. The method is single source. The second one is $39 is 75 bututs. Ja oil, single source. Goods for an amount of 43,476. Summer filling, single source. The problems with this procurement is that, number one, the purchase order was not raised by the end users department. The procured item was not specified on the procurement plan. The procurement method was above the threshold. There was no delivery receipt, no inspections committee. There was no evaluation report, no GPA Form 003, record of request for single source, Form 004, payment authorization, and Form 102, purchase order. So none of these forms were present. Now, you have documentation was incomplete. There was no evaluation report. And again, the management did not respond to these expenditures. Madam Chair, that brings us to the end with respect to the compliance review for the year ended 31st December 2020 to 2021. I will allow the commissioners to ask questions if they have any.
I believe this is a convenient point to stop. It's after 4. We will proceed tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Sanya. We expect you tomorrow here at 10 o'clock. Sorry.
Madam Chair, tomorrow is Friday.
Okay.
You know,
I thought tomorrow is Thursday.
I am happily saying it's Friday tomorrow.
Madam, sorry, I have
Yes, yes.
when I was contacted, I was told that because Tambura and my DE was coming,
Yes,
but they scheduled to travel,
yes.
and they are expected back on Monday.
On Monday.
Yes. So
Yes.
I just want to make this clarification. Anyway.
Yes, if they are expected over the weekend and they will be in the office on Monday, we can proceed with them. But if they are not expected in the office on Monday, you have to be here by 10 and they will proceed on Tuesday. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.